Call this meeting officially open of the Smith Ranch Homes Board of Directors for the November meeting. We're going to start it off today a little differently than we usually do. We're going to have Cliff and Gary are going to present the 2026 budget, and I wanted to say a few words about the preparation of that budget. There's a huge amount of work that goes into it. The Finance Committee actually it starts with each one of the managers developing their budget and submitting that to Scott and working on it. And then the Finance Committee will hear the budget presentations from each manager. Then we consolidate all of the managers into one budget, take a look at the bottom line, and then there's obviously a lot of massaging that goes on after that. And the Finance Committee is to be congratulated for the kind of work that they put into it. They start, when is it you start, Cliff, on the budget?
In June.
In June. And here it is November now, and we're going to be presenting the final 2026 budget. Before the budget presentation, though, Gary's going to give you an abbreviated treasurer's report to tell you a little bit about what October looked like and what we look like year to date. So that's enough from me. I'll turn it over to Gary.
So you're all going to have plenty of numbers when we start doing the budget, so I'm going to cut down on the number of numbers in the operations review. So let me just start off with operations as opposed to dining. So you see for the month of October, revenue of $900,000 plus money that goes to the reserves for a net revenue of $774,000. Total expenses about $790,000 for about $15,000 negative, which is better than budget. So from operations standpoint, it was a pretty good month. Then we go to dining. Same situation there. You see up at the upper left, we have revenue of $371,000, plus cost of goods, $132,000, net revenue, $240,000. And you subtract the expenses, and we're $5,000 positive, which is $9,000 under budget. So it was a good month for dining as well. So you combine the two, you'll see on the left is the budget, on the right is the actual for the month of October. Operations was budgeted to be $51,000 negative, it was only $15,000 negative. Dining services budgeted 14 positive, was 5,000 positive. So the net for the month of October, the budget was to be a negative 37,000, turned out to be a negative 10,000. So kudos for October. And then finally, to look at year to date, I like this chart. This is, you start the year at the top, and so this is the combination of operations and dining, and this is the bottom line, let's say, for each month. And you'll see, as typical, we start off the year very positive. For one thing, we don't have the large insurance expenses starting until April. So you'll see positive numbers in January, February, March, then April, 10,000 negative, and then May is slightly negative, June negative, July negative, August negative, September we eked out a positive, and then October negative. So we don't like to see negatives, but on the other hand, that's a whole lot better than the budget. The budget would have had us 104,000 negative at this point in time, instead of 74,000. So from that standpoint, we're continuing to think that we're gonna end up the year pretty much on budget. We never can tell what might happen, but at least that's our thinking right now. And then that leads us into next year, and that's what we're gonna talk about next. Okay, you can get rid of this.
Okay, good afternoon, everybody. I won the stick to man the PowerPoint presentation from the lectern, so this is my role today. Actually, I'll do a little bit more than that, but while I talk, I'm going to chew gum at the same time, and we're going to call up our budget presentation. And while I'm doing that, and what could possibly go wrong? Nothing, so far so good. Regarding the timeline, there's somebody who is at home right now. Paul Eldering is a big contributor to the budget process at Smith Ranch Homes for many, 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 many years, and also was a big mentor and leader for me as well. And he taught me that the budget season never ends. It's January 1 through December 31, because you're always thinking about how to strategically create a budget for Smith Ranch Homes and how big of a ship we are. As you'll learn today, or you'll see today, you'll understand why. Internally, though, pitchers and catchers report to spring training around mid-February, and that's personally for me when I start really kind of getting into budget season. I'll send a notice out to the new committee chairs that take over in March about, hey, get ready, start thinking about some ideas that you'd like for the subsequent year. But also the managers spend a lot of time before it even gets to the finance committee. They spend about 3 months going over their internal budgets. So it's quite a lengthy process, but it also shows that there's a lot of attention to detail on what we do to build a budget. The budget detail itself, if you were to look in my office, it's about 3 of those binders right there. We consolidate those 3 binders into a 47 50-page document that we're going to distribute to you on Friday. I don't want to distribute to you 47 pages to 50 pages, but I'm legally required to by the Davis-Sterling Act. So the Davis-Sterling Act requires an annual budget report and an annual policy statement to be distributed to the homeowners before 30 days of the close of the fiscal year. So we have until Friday to actually get this out to you. So in these 47 pages, there's some budget information, some reserve information, also a lot of policies that we're required to disclose to you. Today we took 47 of those pages and consolidated it down to 1 page that you have in your hand right now. And don't worry, that's all you need. We'll see you tomorrow. But we are going to put these materials on our website. Also, our PowerPoint presentation today will be on our website, so don't feel like you need to take notes and scribble everything down. This will be available to you in due order. Today, we're going to talk about a whole host of things, and I'm a little saddened. I used to do this PowerPoint presentation by myself, and now we've bolstered up to 4 solid individuals. And we all met in the conference room yesterday, and I said, boy, I hope a bomb doesn't go off because the 4 of us are in the same room at the same time. But I'm really proud to have Daria really kind of baptized by fire on the budget process when you came on board in June. But thank you for being here. Then Cliff, Gary, and I think we'll be able to paint a pretty good picture for you. But I'm really going to be the slideshow operator. But I will show you what we're going to talk about today. Cliff is going to talk about the Finance Committee and the budget approach. And then Gary's going to break down the assessment and how that relates to the budget. Oop, there's a little something there. I will give a little bit of a historical perspective of how the assessment increases next year relates to prior years. We're going to spend some time with Cliff talking about reserves and then how your assessed dollar gets expensed to a lot of different subjects here at Smith Ranch Homes. So Cliff, I'm going to pass it to you, and I'll be here manning the ship if you'd like. You can get up and point, or you can talk from your desk, but take it away.
There we go. All right. I normally stand up and talk and move around and so on, but today I'll try to sit still for a little bit. So the finance committee has 7 members, the chair, which is myself, and, longtime members on the committee, Bruce Morris, Jerry Lewis, and Ian Leverton, and I sincerely want to thank them for all their efforts and contributions to the committee. Unfortunately, during the year, a couple of events happened, and many of you may know, Greer Goldman's husband passed away, and she felt she needed to resign from the committee, which she did. And then unfortunately, Mike Doodson passed away, so we were left with 2 holes in our committee. At the beginning of the year, David Berkowitz joined our committee, and then Terry Pettengill with a little arm twisting joined, and just recently Eileen Samard has joined us. So we now have a full committee. Now, with Eileen joining us on this last meeting this month, we only went 3 hours, so she didn't get a full baptismal into what our committee does. But again, I want to thank them for their efforts. Okay. What's our next slide, Scott?
Preparation strategies.
So, as Scott has mentioned, and many of you know, we are what we call zero-based budgeting. There's 2 things to that. One is every year, every department starts at 0 and builds their expected expenditures for the following year up from that. So they scrutinize every expense item, they look at it, what's the trends, what's the cost, what's inflation doing, all of those things factor into it. They meet with Scott and Daria, review it, then they come, the individual managers, Kevin and Lila and Monica, etc., come to our committee meeting to present their budget. And we review it in detail and have a number of questions of them, and in most cases, send them back to the drawing board for additional review of certain items. The other zero-based budgeting is that we plan and budget to 0 balance at the end of the year. That is, revenues equal expenditures. That never happens, but we plan for that. A budget is a fairly detailed process, but again, expenditures and to a degree revenue are estimates. They're the best estimates we can come up with, but things change over the course of the year. So they are estimates in that respect. One of our item number 2 up here, one of the main caveat or principles is we want to maintain a reasonable assessment for our residents, and we want to consider the practical cost of living adjustments while providing the services and amenities requested by residents. This is a balancing act, plain and simple. I think everybody does their best, but it is a balancing act. And last, when it comes to reserves, the committee is charged with, along with management, reviewing our components. Reviewing our components, and looking at the cost of those, the estimated life, and so on, in conjunction with the maintenance committee. So it is a process to arrive at our reserves, and we will actually cover that a little bit later. Did I cover everything? Did I cover everything?
We have 15 more minutes, folks, to cover 38 more slides.
Okay, this next page, as you can see, lists all of the expenditures by department, and shows the change between the 2025 year and the 2026 year. The first 4 items, the first 4 departments on this list make up operations, and that is what affects the unit assessment. The dining, the last item on this sheet, is what affects the dining assessment, of course. So overall, you can see that expenditures are increasing by about $800,000. A lot of that has to do with wages and benefits. In terms of the individual departments, you'll see maintenance has nearly 11% increase. A lot of that has to do with utilities and with maintenance of various components of the property. Administration, insurance is a big increase there. And then resident services, there's a new position, and dining, of course, as every other department is affected by wages and benefits and just inflation to the cost of goods sold.
So Gary, you're gonna dive into the regular assessment on what makes that up.
So what you see here, we have shortened the number terminology to just M's. So you see an M there and it's a million. So you can see that the department expense is budgeted for 9.9 million. We have 1.6 million that then we assess for the reserves, providing a total cash requirement of 11.5 million in operations. We do get ancillary revenue. The primary source of that is the rent calculation for the marketing people and houses that are units that are sold during the year. So we subtract that, and we get down to 11.2 million owner assessment. And at this point, we're gonna switch just a little bit because I just mentioned in passing 1.6 million for the reserves. So now we're gonna go back to Cliff, and Cliff is gonna go into the reserves in some detail because that really is very important in the long term.
So every year, at the end of the year, we publish a reserve study book. And within that book lists all of the components, the individual components, such as a boiler, such as tables and chairs, that make up all of the common area property of this association. That's in this book. So, here's what I'm got. The contribution. So, the finance committee, in conjunction with the maintenance committee and management, looks at what components are coming up in the next year, the year after, to be replaced, how much money is coming into the reserves, and what our estimated income from interest will be into the reserve fund. And in doing so, we have to make calculations as to how much money is needed into that reserve fund to meet our 1.5 million threshold funding at year end. So for this year, in doing that calculation, we said that for 2026 through 2028, the contribution into the reserves needed to increase 5% a year in order to meet that threshold funding. So that's the 5%. But looking out for the next 20 plus years, we said, well, we can reduce that increase to 2.75. So the increase in the amount of money coming into reserves is in consideration of the cost. Is that not good?
It's a little too short. There we go.
Okay. Oh, I can hear myself. So, my wife says I speak too loud anyway most of the time. So for those next years, we felt that we could reduce that contribution increase to 2.75. But the contribution increase is a measure of the cost increase in our components every year, along with our income. So the board has approved the Finance Committee, Maintenance Committee's recommendation for the reserve funding for 2026 and beyond. But again, we look at it every single year. So the 2026 contribution will be $1,640,000, and we contribute that to the reserve fund every month. So a portion of that, 1/12 of that goes into the reserve fund every month. Okay,
The board also approved a couple of transfers into the reserves by the year end, and so we were gonna talk about those as
oh,
well.
there we are. So as everyone probably knows, we received a chunk of money from the IRS called the Employee Retention Credit. Took us quite a while to get the money, but we ended up receiving approximately 1.2 million. Of those dollars, the board has agreed to take 200,000 and contribute that to the reserve fund. In addition, the special assessment that was levied a couple of years ago for the water damage mitigation, the villa work that villa water damage mitigation work that was done. We've gone through that, and we are estimating that come the end of this year, after all expenses have been paid for that project, we'll end up with approximately $300,000. Of that $300,000, the board has agreed to contribute
175.
$175,000 to the reserves. Okay,
Threshold funding, next slide.
threshold funding. So, some years ago, Smith Ranch, we looked at this, before I came on board. We had a threshold funding of 0. The objective was at year end, we wanted to make sure that there was still money in the reserve fund. There was much discussion on this, and we've raised that to a threshold of 1.5 million. And probably as we go through the years, that threshold may be raised further. But our goal is, when we look out over every year for the next 30 years, taking what's coming into reserves, what the income is, what the planned projected expenditures are, we want to make sure that year in, the balance is at least $1.5 million. Some years it's considerably more, some years it gets close, and when it gets close, we have to make a decision. How are we going to make sure that we meet that threshold? So for, where am I?
The assumptions now on the investment.
Assumptions. So every year we look at the assumptions. There's a couple of assumptions. One is, what is the investment rate that our monies in the reserve fund will earn? We have approximately 2.5 million in the reserve fund right now, today. So looking forward to next year, the year after, and so on, we have to come up with a guess as to what they will earn in the way of interest after tax. Again, Smith Ranch pays an income tax to the IRS and to the state of California on our net investment income. So we've estimated that for 2026 through 2028, that the investment rate is going to be 3.25. After that, it will reduce. Our assumption is that the Fed's going to lower the rates. The rates on treasuries and CDs will come down a bit. So after that, it's 2.75. We're using an inflation factor, again, guess of an inflation factor of 2.75. So our investment income is probably going to balance out with that inflation factor. All right, next slide. So, percent funded. So, very quickly, I'm going to give do I have time to give a quick example?
1 minute or less.
1 minute. Okay, so I'm going to give you an example. So let's say we have one component in our reserves. That component has a current replacement cost of $200,000. It has a useful life of 10 years. We are 3 years into that cycle. That is, we replaced that component 3 years ago. So if I take 3 and divide it by 10, that's 30%. So we are into that cycle 30%. We take 30%, multiply it by that replacement cost of $200,000. That says we need $60,000 in the reserve fund to be 100% funded. If we only have 20,000 in the reserve fund, 20,000 divided by 60 says it's a third, or 33.3% funded. More money in there, the greater the percentage funded, the less money, the lower. So that's just a quick example. It is the opinion of the finance committee, management, and the board that we are adequately funded based on the fact that we look at this every single year. We make adjustments to our funding study every single year, and we feel comfortable that we can meet that $1.5 million threshold and understand that the percent funded is, it shows here, is only 25%. But again, the committee and management and the board feels that that's all right. It's adequate for us based on our processes and procedures.
I think a quick snapshot on that is back to our investment rate. We're only projecting a 2 or 3% rate of return, which is not common, right? You would kind of look at more of an 8% market rate of return. But our investment policy for the association is very different than what you have at home. We can invest in treasuries, CDs, very limited growth items, because our first goal is to preserve your contributions. Then we try to maximize income on interest. So we would prefer to not be a bank and hold an extra $10 million, $15 million and allow you, the homeowner, to invest it any way that you want. But with our game plan of never going below 1.5, we feel we have enough buffer. And I think our 35-year history here is maybe we've missed the mark once or twice for major projects that we did not really have any reasonable foreseen experience on that. So the proof is in the pudding that we would prefer to have the residents hold the money, and then we'll come to you for a very particular reason and not necessarily just hold your cash. What's worth noting too is that we're finishing 2026 with a healthy $3.3 million balance. 2.5 is versus what we have today. But we know in 2027, there's a $3.5 million expectation of expenses related to the condo renovation project. And that's chiefly why we're increasing our year over year from 26 to 28.5%, because we need to increase some contributions to reserves to be able to make that project work. Wanted to crystallize that a little bit more, Cliff, if you don't mind, and I don't know if I maybe missed something on that.
No, great.
Okay, so that then shifts on how we got to the $1.6 million contribution in the reserve funding, and we're going to pass the microphone back to Gary to go back to the regular assessment effect of that.
So let's start with the bottom line. Your 2026 percentage increase in assessment is 5.11%. I'll be getting into some detail on that, but originally when we ran the numbers, I think you saw that when you saw what Daria was showing about the annual increase for the various departments, over 10% on one and 7%. How did we come up with only 5.1%? If we had just taken the numbers from the budget, we would have had an assessment increase of 6.28%. But by applying $125,000 from the reconstruction fund residual to the budget, we were able to reduce the increase in assessment from 6.28% to 5.11%. So that's good news for everybody. So the way that works out, if you want to pick out your place out of this example here, these are just examples. When you get your 47-page document in your cubby, you'll get every unit in there. Every size unit will be listed. But here it says, for example, you see size codes, these 1, 2, 3, and 4 represent the size of your unit. Then you see that where you have in the condo buildings, you have this year's annual assessment or monthly assessment. Next, the budget for next year, monthly assessment. And then they all have the same increase, all 5.11% increase, but the amount is different depending on the size of your unit. And then so up at the top you see some of the smaller units, and down at the bottom you see condos, and combined units, which are the larger ones. You'll see there's a fairly large difference in the monthly assessment, but not a difference in the percent. So the percent of increase is going to be the same for all. Then we turn to dining. So dining, we have 2.7 million department expense, dining expense. Subtract 1.9 million of food and beverage costs from that. I mean, add 1.9 food and beverage costs. You end up with a total of 4.6 million cash requirement. From that, we can subtract 412,000 of ancillary revenue. Keep going to the bar, keep buying those drinks. Which leaves us with 4.2 million owner assessment, which comes out to 6.08% increase, which I think is pretty reasonable when you consider what the price of food has been going through in the last few years, especially this last year. One thing that did help is that we're using a 302 person census this time, and since the assessment is based on individuals, not on units, we have two more people in the budget that we can anticipate income from than we did this year. So that does help a little bit as well. So then you combine the two. So at the top you'll have combined operations, dining services, total requirement of 6.1 million. 16.1 million. We subtract the revenue, ancillary revenue, and the dining services ancillary revenue. Leaves us with 11.2, the freight assessment, the 4.2, the dining service fee, total 16.1 million, and bravo, there you are at the end is zero. Zero budget.
Zero-based budgeting,
Scott? back to you.
zero-based budgeting. There you go.
Thanks, Gary. Good job. So I wanted to give a little bit of a time horizon because there's a nasty rumor that comes up to me ever so often that says, "Why are assessments going up 20% every year?" And I said, "What? 20% every year?" So I wanted to take just a regular assessment. Floor plan 7 is kind of middle America here at Smith Ranch Homes in terms of the size. So I took the unit assessment for a floor plan 7. Yours may be a little less or a little more. But I look back in the last 5 years, starting in 22, and every year has its own kind of deep story worth sharing. But it's worth pointing out that really the overall history here has rate increases that are between 5 and 7%. We had a particular year in 2023, and if we had our Wayback Machine, we would see that inflation was at a really all-time high, but also was recruiting talent. So we had to make some significant changes to our compensation rates as well. So there was a bit of an adjustment in 2023. On the dining service side of things as well, things can change quite a bit because of the census, but also the food market has been quite topsy-turvy as well. 2023 was again another year where we had quite double-digit increases, but overall there's been that average of 5 to 7% with maybe an occasional lower year. Now within some of these years too, we maybe made an adjustment within the year. I'm really just taking flat rates from the start of one year to the start of another year. What I wanted to look at also was your dollar amount. We've spent a lot of time talking about percentages, and that's nice, but how does that affect your actual pocketbook? So I wanted to look at two scenarios again, and I'm thinking of a single person in a floor plan 7, and also a couple residing in an A2 villa. So that single living in a floor plan 7 is currently spending $1,102 for a dining fee and $3,500 for a unit fee, essentially $4,691 per month to live at Smith Ranch Homes. The 2026 assessment, based on the increases, will go up $250 to $4,942. When you annualize that, that's about $3,000 more that you'll be paying next year versus what you're paying this year. And I think seeing that dollar amount is an important number to see outside of just the percentages. That's essentially a 5% increase when you're looking at a combined cash flow increase. On the villa side, it's not much different, but you now have 2 people taking a dining service fee. And with that monthly difference between 25 and 26, that's $375 more per month. or essentially a 5.4% increase. So let's call it 4 1/4 to 5 1/2 is what your cash flow increase will be from 25 to 26 to live at Smith Ranch Homes. Daria, for every dollar that they spend at Smith Ranch, what does that go to on either side?
Okay, this next slide. Okay, this slide illustrates what every dollar of your unit assessment pays for. So you can see here that wages, workers' comp and taxes, and employee benefits account for 35% of the unit assessment, and then patrol and valet services at another 11%. So that's 46% that goes for the services that are provided by employees and by patrol and valet. Another large portion, as you see there, is the reserve fund, which was discussed. That's 14%. Utilities, 13%, and then insurance, which is always in the news as a big expense, is 9%. And then you can see the various other smaller items that are listed here. Okay, the next one is the dining service fee. In this case, you would see that the employee costs account for more than half, about 57%, and cost of goods, which is food, is 36%. Of course, dining doesn't have some of the expenditures such as the property insurance or facilities cost and utilities, things like that. That's why such a much larger portion of that assessment goes towards employee costs and food, of course.
It is worth noting, 60% of the dining service fees going to compensation items. We've heard of some communities rolling out robots serving your food. I don't think we're ever going to get to that point, but I do think the personal touch at Smith Ranch Homes is also having Felix come and talk to you on a nightly basis and know your preferences and such. But there is a cost to be had regarding the staffing of dining services because it's quite an operation. If you're to look at most restaurants in Marin County, they probably don't have the operating budget that we have of almost, it's over $4 million. So thanks, Daria.
If I can just jump in for a second on that slide, that circle slide that was there, the pie chart. Two big items, insurance and utilities. There's very little that we can do to adjust those costs. Obviously, utilities, that's pretty well fostered upon us, and as we all know, utilities have been going up. Marin Municipal Water District, I think, increased their water charges like 40 or 50% a year ago. So those costs are pretty well in the budget, but they are a very significant portion of what we pay.
So you may have questions, and we're going to open up the floor to some that you might have now. But there is also an opportunity to reach out to any four of us or any member of the Finance Committee if you want a little more information. Somebody on the Finance Committee, I think, Bruce, you might have brought it up, that Belvedere has a smaller budget than Smith Ranch Homes. We're at $16 million. And that $1.5 million threshold was kind of an index when we calculated off of a $15 million budget. And when we get to $20 million, someday soon or later, we'll probably increase that to a $2 million threshold. So we're keeping that money kind of in our minds, but it just also reiterates how big of an operation we have here at Smith Ranch Homes. I think I wanted to do a quick look as well. I think maybe Fairfax might be right around that dollar amount as well too. There's other cities within Marin that have smaller operating budgets than Smith Ranch Homes. So good job to the team, to the management team, to the Finance Committee, to the board, and everybody else. Thanks for playing a major role. There is not a lot of fat on this budget. We put in what we need to do, what we want to do, and not always everything gets on there, but we try to listen to you as much as we can. Let's open it up to the floor though. Hopefully there's a question or two that we can field. We have some staff with microphones ready to go. See a sign of hands of anybody that has a question about what we presented today. Speechless.
Yeah.
Covered it all.
Greta has it.
Got one right
Oh,
here.
Gladys.
Gladys has it.
I don't have a question, I have a thank you. Thank you for doing this, but also, without our dining services being as exemplary as they are, we are very, very fortunate, and I'm glad to pay the fee.
Great. Thank you, Gladys.
Yes.
Okay, well, we have a lot of other things to talk about today with the board. So, crew, we're going to excuse some of you. Board, if you could come join us at the table.
We obviously just dazzled everybody with our brilliance, I mean, you know, without a doubt.
So thorough, we have to. So thorough, we have to.
I understood it.
Yeah.
Well, it's enough said, but I do want to say, we've got four very good financial people. Not only do we have a great finance committee and a lot of talent there, but the four of them managing the finances for Smith Ranch, I'm very, very pleased and proud that we have that group. Thank you, the four of you, Gary, Cliff, Daria, Gary, Scott. Thank you very much for what you're doing, what you have done for Smith Ranch. Okay, we're gonna move on now with our agenda. We've got 3 reserve items. We talked a lot about the reserve in the last 15 minutes. Well, we've got 3 reserve items that need to be discussed and approved. Scott?
Thank you, Cliff. Oh,
Yeah.
Glenn, jeez. I was up all night worrying about this presentation. All right, so yeah, we adjusted the agenda a little bit just to work better within the flow of information. And we thought what better than to start with some reserve action items, since we just gave you a deep dive into reserves. And it's important that we have these on the agenda. We had a schedule to do projects this year, and sometimes we get all the way to the end of the year to say, yeah, we're still gonna do some of these and we'll get them done by the end. Or we'd like to get some approvals now so we can hit the ground running in early January. One of those is in Building 400. Building 400, like all other buildings, have a hot water system. And earlier this year, we already replaced one of the 2 major hot water systems in the building. That's great, but the other system does need to be replaced as well. The repairs have been made to the existing system that we know we can get through the next couple of months. And we've also already put an order in on the secondary hot water system, but it won't arrive until early January. The maintenance committee reviewed this along with the finance committee, and so we looked at a proposal that was really a duplicate of the proposal that came to us from ASSC, our contract HVAC vendor, to replace a new heat and hot water system for $19,986. We anticipated this expense, so we have $20,000 in the 2026 reserve study. So both the Maintenance and Finance Committee has reviewed the proposal and forwarded a recommendation to the board to approve this expense as a appropriate 2026 reserve expense for a total of $19,986. I'll entertain any questions from the board or pass it to you for action.
Do I have a motion that we adopt the recommendation for the 400 hot water heater?
I move.
I'll second.
Moved and second. Any discussion on that? Any questions from the board? Hearing none?
Oh wait, Scott, can you explain why we have these 2 different systems now, one in some buildings and another in others?
Oh, okay, Gary, let's take a break on this one, yeah. This will take a little while, but I'll try to synthesize it as much as I can. Buildings 400 and 600 were the early guinea pigs of replacing the original heat and hot water system. So originally every building had 2 hot water heaters and 4 boilers to produce the hot water for your buildings. In 2015, our HVAC contractor at the time said, let's get away from that program and do a combined system all into one unit. It almost looks like a tankless hot water heater that you may have seen. Unfortunately, the technology was not great and the installation at the time was not very favorable, so we were fraught with a lot of challenges on that install for those 2 buildings. So by the time we got to building 300, we said, you know what, forget that system. We're gonna pivot back to our original in-kind replacement program. The 400 and 600 systems that are combined that we're replacing now are those original 2015 ones, but our current contractor said the newer models are much more efficient than the first ones. They were very early technology at that time, so we expect to get much more of the 15-year useful life that we originally expected on these with this replacement.
Other questions from the board? Okay. We'll now take a vote. We have a motion on this and a second. All in favor of passing the motion as recommended?
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion is carried unanimously. The next reserve item is a pruning allowance. Scott, you can handle that one too.
Yeah, this originates out of the Landscape Committee and also was forwarded to the Finance Committee for review. Our 2025 reserve study has an allowance every 4 years for major tree pruning to the tune of $50,000. This is in addition to the annual budget of $10,000 that the Landscape Committee has already spent this year. The annual pruning allowance really is not enough to be able to be strategic or doing much more than just the bare bones necessary work. So this allowance from reserves allows the committee to address trees that might be diseased or actually need some ornamental or visual kind of improvements. So the Landscape Committee collaborated with our landscape contractor and developed a second pruning list for a total of $38,000. This includes various sick trees, also stump grinding, improve some security, light visibility, etc. And the committee also recommends about $5,000 in replacements in some areas that trees must be removed due to disease. We recommend an additional $2,000 in contingency funds for unforeseen aspects of the project for a total of $45,000 of that $50,000 allowance. Finance Committee reviewed this as well, and both committees forwarded a recommendation to proceed at a not to exceed cost of $45,000 as a 2025 reserve expense.
Do I hear a motion that we approve the pruning allowance of $45,000?
So,
Second.
Moved and seconded. Discussion.
Yeah, Scott, I guess, our CCNR state that any expenses for personal plantings be billed to the owners if they requested those, plantings. So I would just ask that management review the list to see if any of those situations exist.
That's great. We'll take that on.
And they may be no situation like that, but, just wanted to have you review it. And so.
Yeah, there's a list of almost 75 trees that'll be pruned, not necessarily removed or anything like that, but just there's a lengthy list, and we want to make sure if there's any personal trees that were planted, yeah, the responsibility should be the homeowner, and we'll reach out to you in advance to let you know.
75 trees need pruning. How many trees do we have on the property? Do we know? Over 700 trees on this property. And that's one of the great assets of this property is all the vegetation, especially the trees and so on we have. So we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion is carried. Okay, Scott, why do we need pool room electrical?
Remember those nice words from Gladys a couple minutes ago? No, I'm kidding. We want to keep our pool room not just operational, but we want to keep it safe. Usually around this time of year, I'll ask the managers, really look hard into your department to see what do we want to do now versus trying to budget for next year, or what do we really need to use right now when perhaps we have some extra funding available. But if there's none there, that's great. We'll take the win, but let's try to use our funding wisely, particularly in the maintenance department where I have identified some deferred maintenance that we want to catch up on. During a walkthrough, it was identified that a number of corrosive chemicals in the room has provided an unsafe condition of our entire electrical system that's stored in the pool room. In 2024, an electrician gave us a quote for $15,000 to improve the area, but unfortunately it just got kind of missed in the to-do list for this year. So the department circled back and received a revised project estimate of $16,500, which would allow the electrician to come in and take care of this electrical system that's original, 35 years old. I don't think I included a picture of this, but it really does look like a rusted tin box that's just housing all of our electrical system to operate the pool, but there's also a lighting system attached to it as well. So the Finance Committee looked at this proposal. We saw it as a value of $16,500, which is above the $15,000 threshold for reserves. We recognize that this electrical system is not in the reserve study, so we are going to begin reserving for this, probably for a useful life of 20 years. But in the meantime, we'd love to take care of the safety condition, and the recommendation's been passed to the board by the Maintenance and Finance Committee.
I move approval.
I'll second.
Moved and seconded that we approve the $16,500 pool room electrical project. Any discussion by the board? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion is carried. Boy, we're moving right along, aren't we?
I could have spent more time talking then.
The next item on the agenda, we moved the consent agenda down a little bit so that we could get the budget and all that up front. We didn't know how much time that Cliff was gonna take. So we moved it down, and if you recall, the consent agenda is where we have items that can be bunched together and one deal with it in one motion. Okay, Charlene is gonna take us through the consent agenda.
All right, I'm gonna read the items in it and then we can move to approve it. So the items are the simple one of approving the minutes from the October 28th sessions. The second one is the duty to inspect, which happened on 11/21 for the financial review. The nominating committee has recommended Maggie Williams to serve on activities, Judy Weiss to serve on architecture, Gail Berkowitz to go on communications committee, and all those have agreed. And so, okay, so that's all on the consent calendar, and I move that we accept the consent calendar.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? I will say that we also are approving the minutes from a special meeting that the board had on Friday afternoon on the ERC project, so that the minutes of 11/21 also to be included in. Any discussion on the consent agenda?
Hopefully not, there's not much, not very exciting.
Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion is carried. Okay. Now we have Scott's management report. That's always fun.
Thanks, Glenn. You've heard enough from me already, so I'll keep this simple. But there's some highlights that I think are worth pointing out. And the first thing is point out the things that we are getting done at Smith Ranch Homes. Again, that nasty rumor that we take forever to get things done. The yellow items here are the completed items since the last time we met. The clubhouse chiller, which had been fraught with a lot of challenges for many years, actually was just installed in the middle of November. So after our thermostat replacement program and chiller, we really have a dialed in HVAC program for the clubhouse. Our putting green was approved on October 28th, and they're finished by November 14th. So kudos to that replacement program, and it looks great. At the same time of our chiller replacement, we also installed the water heater for the clubhouse. That was also approved in October. So things are getting approved, and boom, they're getting done within the same, shortly thereafter. And then Karen, tell me if you feel like I can say this, but the North Star software at least has gone live and is in your hands. So I marked it as completed, but I knew Karen was gonna probably say something about that. But I'm gonna share why I actually feel stronger about that than ever before. At the same time, I have heard that the valet carts have started getting their new enclosures.
Yes.
Now, on the other end of the spectrum, we had those approved in May. So I had been waiting for those items to come, and magically a resident told me one day, hey, the carts look great. And I said, oh my gosh, they must be getting the new covers finally. So just in time for the rainy season, I suppose. We have a new teammate. Last month, I had a new teammate introduction for Jessica Graham, our new administration manager. I had Jessica come all the way up to the front and stand right in front of the video camera, and I'm not going to do that to this new teammate because she didn't know I was going to introduce her today. But you may or may not know Janine. Janine's our administrative assistant up on the 3rd floor. She comes to us from an agency, but she already feels like she's part of the team. And when I was thinking to myself, what would be the best image to represent Janine, I thought this would be perfect, because not only does Janine come with a nice, spirited, colorful, cheery outfit every day, but she also brings a really cheery personality and a good energy to our third floor. So Janine, you're there in the corner. If you don't mind at least standing up and just kind of wave, other than, or else I'll make you come up here. All right. What's that?
The candy dish.
Oh, the candy dish. There is a candy dish up there, and unfortunately your budget probably just got busted by communicating that. I learned a little bit about Janine yesterday. She had, I think, a brother living in California. She was from northern Pennsylvania, no, New York, upstate New York, and visited California and then never returned. So I like hearing stories like that because I hear of everybody leaving California right now. So no, welcome aboard, Janine. Thanks for being here. Also on a staffing front, there's a couple of changes that we wanted to communicate to you here. You just approved some resident changes to the rosters. We're also going to incorporate some staff liaison support language in our rosters, and this is also a way to develop talent. You've heard a lot about me, you've heard about Daria, you've heard about Danielle, Kevin, Lila, Monica, Jessica, but we also have a whole core of strong teammates working with us as well too. So the principal kind of idea about the staff liaison support is to get key staff members that are really showing great potential and showing efforts that they have ability to help support the staff liaison on the committee. Because many of you know on serving on committees that the staff liaison is there to help and guide, but the staff liaison has a lot of limited resources as well too. And so this designated individual gets onto the radar of the community. I don't know, well, I know everybody knows Sarah Sewell, who's going to be the designated staff liaison support for the activities. But Gabriella, our bookkeeper on the third floor, will be working with Daria on the appreciation committee. The architectural committee is going through a bit of a transition, but we'll be hiring a resident resource coordinator to be a strong administrative support for the staff liaison in the committee. Our Izzy Berkson is on the communications committee working with Jessica. Andrea Green, who we all hopefully know in our dining room, will be working with Danielle. Gabriella, again, will be working with Daria on the finance committee. Mark Anthony, who I had introduced to you a couple of months ago, will be working with Kevin on the landscape, and then Daniel Tikas on the maintenance committee. Isabel makes an appearance again with the nominating committee, and then Alex Anziano from the resident services desk will be working with Monica on the welcome committee. They're not necessarily going to be attending every meeting. This is not necessarily the point of contact if a committee member needs something. It's really to help support the manager, but also maybe attend meetings and learn how committee operations work and just build up some skill sets with some talent that we think really could go far here at Smith Ranch Homes. We also have our advisory groups. So Alex jumps into a group as well with the library advisory group, volunteer group, excuse me. And then Natalia Abbott, our human resources generalist, is designated working with Jessica on the scholarship advisory group. So we're just trying to show you that we have a lot of names and faces that we want to keep in the community's eyes. Sometimes these people only meet you during the open house, so we'd like you to engage with them a little bit more, but we also like to always develop new talent for the future at Smith Ranch. Shifting, scam alert. Okay. We get scam alerts quite a bit at Smith Ranch Homes. I get a lot of weird emails or phone calls coming from Afghanistan. I've never picked up that phone call, but I get it a lot. This is an example of an email that a resident sent to me saying, this doesn't seem right about somebody who sent this to me. So if this looks familiar, I have at least redacted the important names and faces. But this is from a resident here with a reply of that same name, but it came from them at Comcast.net, but the reply to was at Outlook.com. Just something kind of different than would be typical. Why would you even see that? Why would it be different? And the request was, hey, I hope it's not an inconvenience. Do you typically shop at Amazon when making online purchases? Well, that seems random from one resident to another. So I really appreciated the resident who forwarded this to me to say, yikes, I think something's going on. But it's also a learning opportunity on what do you do? And there's not a one-size-fits-all response to this. But the first thing I would recommend is that if I was Scott Newman living in 602G and I received this from Cliff Schulroy, also in building 600, I would call Cliff and say, hey Cliff, just want to let you know I got an email that I think is No bueno. Don't reply back to the email saying, Cliff, I think something's wrong. That's the opposite of what you want to do, but let him know because they need to start changing their passwords, start addressing the issue. But at the same time, letting the community know is important. So if you could reach our resident services desk and just let them know, again, don't forward the email. That's a booby trap. Every time you pass these things along, they have a potential of contaminating something or getting into our server. But call the resident services desk and let us know something that's going on that we can maybe pass on to the community. Sometimes these can be also very sensitive and embarrassing. And I've had some of those instances. You can always contact me if you really don't know where to go or you just don't know who's calling or why they're asking for things. Give me a call and we'll certainly walk through that together. Sarah, I saw you raise your hand. Fill in some blanks for me.
I wanted to let everybody know we have a tech talk on Friday, December 5th with Tim, I forgot his last name, but he will be talking about scams again. So I advise everyone to come and listen to him talk. He'll have a lot of information.
That's great. He's been here before on that same subject, and I think we have a lot to learn from him. So from one scary thing to another, I was here, was it last Friday? I blocked it out of my head, so yeah, Friday before. And I did a North Star presentation about and we were trying to navigate the website. And I thought that was gonna be just kind of a rough day, and then my car caught on fire the day after that, and I realized, okay, it wasn't that bad of a day. But the good news is our team has been working really hard with North Star and our IT group, and really want to identify our key implementation group. We have Daria, Danielle, Monica, and Jessica. Jessica worked really hard with our teammates, and as I checked it out today, that's why I put completed. This thing is moving at warp speed from header to drop down to log in. So we are very excited for our next session with you, which is scheduled this Friday. But I'm very happy to report we finally addressed the issue and our website should be clicking on all cylinders. Okay, a couple other reports. First off, before we get into accounting, I attended the Monday Night Football event yesterday. Our quarterback proceeded to throw 3 interceptions, but then they won the game at the end, so I can say we're at least undefeated for every game that I go to, so that's good news. But it was fun to hang out with a full group. I had never been to a Monday Night Football event, and that's a well-oiled machine, so fun to be there.
8-4 we are.
8-4 for the Niners, that's right. In accounting, appreciation fund payments are being processed by Daria. This is her first time working through that game, and I have seen the balance, and I'm so excited for us to report to you later on what that distribution is going to be to the qualified staff, but that is going out December 3rd to the staff. Daria is also working with our new audit firm along with Gary and Cliff. On the administration side, Jessica's met with the communications committee, and remember, November 30th is the deadline. The communications committee is working hard on advertising that Marin IJ Best voting process. We reviewed it one time here, but please vote early and often if you're able to. But please vote really just one way or another. And please contact the communications committee or Jessica if you have any questions. Dining services. Dining services, Danielle reported she made a big upgrade in the North Star world where you can now make reservations of up to 4 people 7 days in advance. That was a breakdown that was not in place, so Danielle just finally polished that up, and I think we'll always continue to show you that we're hearing from you, but we're also improving some of our workflows within North Star. Housekeeping, Walter, our carpet tech, has cleaned all building stairwells and hallways, so I hope you've noticed a big difference in your hallways, and if you haven't, please know that they have been cleaned, but we are appreciative of Walter and his efforts. And then finally, we had some people in Building 100 that I alluded to the last time I was up here that was going through a very rough stretch of sewer issues. There were some design plan issues where our plans said this, and we saw that, and we learned on the fly, but the maintenance department, along with some of our outside contractors, worked really hard to limit the pain and suffering. I see some of them in the audience today, but I really wanted to recognize Daniel Tikas. He's our assistant manager, and he couldn't be here today, but he worked really hard with the rest of the teammates from maintenance to try to address those issues, but thank you to the residents as well, too. He really hung in there. But guess what the culprit was, everybody? grease, not the movie. Yeah, not flushable wipes this time, but it looks like an accumulation of grease from the 3 floors above. We don't know and who, we're not pointing fingers, but there was just a rock hard granite blockage of grease that had accumulated over years. And getting to that was just challenging because of a unique circumstance in that building. Okay, last thing, a lot of activities, holidays, we get it. Thursday, there's the artist reception for you, the residents. I love those flying pigs. Raise your hand if you have a flying pig flying in the gallery. I love it. I heard somebody that said you can wear shorts in the dining room when pigs fly, and I don't know. I think it's out of here, so we'll see how that rolls in the summertime. Monica's reporting though on Wednesday, December 10th. We're going to celebrate our open house, so that's going to be our fun annual event. Every department is working really hard to try to give you a fun taste in each of their areas. And then there's a sing-along. We had our karaoke a week ago, but now we're going to be shifting to a holiday sing-along with Maggie Gray on, is that Tuesday, December 16th? I don't think I made that change, Monica.
It's the 17th.
17th, okay, so Wednesday, December 17th, so that's all wrong. Good job, Scott. All right, pass the word. Wednesday, December 17th, cocktail lounge, 4:30. Buy those drinks early and often as well. And the cool thing is that the unique boutique space, let's do another show of hands. Who has never been inside that unique boutique storefront? Huh, surprisingly, not that many. Okay, well, we are gonna have a final liquidation sale. There is still items in that store that needs to go. 90% off, 95% off, pretty close. A lot of them are just empty boxes that are, gift boxes, but I think there'll be something that resident services will be looking to liquidate and hopefully addresses your shopping list. So Glenn, thank you for allowing me to get into some of my slides. I'll turn it back to you.
Do we have a communication kind of guy as a general manager? We do. That was great communication.
Oh, thank you, Glenn.
I couldn't think of the right word. And usually I can. Okay, we'll move on now. The next item on the list, on the agenda, is the landscape services, and Charlene's going to take that one. It's the contract, actually.
The landscape committee has met and reviewed land care. And we have a recommendation to renew the contract for 2026 at the cost of $324,000. Now this also, we have a new manager, as you know, Jose Hernandez, who is, some of you have worked with him. He's really fun to work with, and I think his landscape is very pleased with their work. They've also added an additional weekly person who will check the irrigation systems. In a community like this, or grounds like this, pruning and irrigation are huge issues, and you don't want mistakes, you don't want problems. So having someone who will regularly check our irrigation system and then coordinate with the specialists we have, I think they feel will be a real help toward us. So I move that we approve the renewal of the contract for that company at the cost of $324,000.
I have a second.
I'll second.
Moved in second. Any discussion on land care? And Dean, you know him better than anybody, I think, on the board.
Yes, I certainly support renewing this contract, but I would recommend that every few years we do get other bids.
Any other discussion? Moved and seconded that we approve the land care contract of $324,000. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion is carried. Okay. We have a tenant who is a long-time tenant up at the maintenance building. Name is Harvey. What's Harvey's last name? Rice? Rich. And he's been there for a long time. And he's going to, we're gonna re-up his contract for another couple of months. Then he'll be moving out and we'll be using that space for office space. I'm not sure we need to do a motion for this, do we, Scott?
No, I think we wanted to keep it as general as possible.
Okay. So we'll move on, if it's on the agenda. Now the annual owner meeting ballot, and I think that is Dean.
Yes, the election committee has prepared the ballot for the 2026 annual owner meeting. And they are asking for board approval to distribute that ballot to all the homeowners on Tuesday, December 5th. And I don't know that you have a picture of the ballot, but what it contains is the 4 candidates who are running for the board, and the 3 nominees receiving the highest vote total will be elected for a 2-year term. And directors shall not be elected using cumulative voting. And the second part of that ballot is a resolution that we vote on every year so that any excess revenue over membership expenses as defined in the IRS code for the year ended 2026 shall be applied against the subsequent tax year member assessments. So in other words, that reduces our assessment, and we don't have to pay tax on that if we approve this resolution. So it's very important that you vote yes to approve that resolution when you fill out your ballot. And you will be receiving that ballot December 5th. Other dates having to do with the election include the biography or the qualifications that each candidate has submitted will be distributed November 28th. And then the candidate forum on December 2nd to hear the candidates speak about their qualifications to serve. And then the 5th, as we've said, the ballots will be distributed. And then January 13, that's the deadline at noon to submit your ballot. So we hope you'll submit it before then. But there will be a special meeting for the counting of the ballots at 10 a.m. in the card room. At that time, the board will convene a meeting, and then the ballot counters, that committee will count the ballots, but that's open. Anybody who wants to observe the counting of the ballots is welcome to do so in the card room. That's always been our tradition. And then also on January 13, we will have our annual vote owner meeting at 2 p.m. And that's when the new board will be announced, and Glenn and I will take our exit. So I move that we approve the ballot for our 2026 annual owner election.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion on that ballot? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion is carried. We were very fortunate through Cliff's effort, Scott's, several others, to get $1,243,000 employee retention credit earlier in the year. We've been, we met on Friday, we've got 700,000 left. We put some in reserve, we've been through that with you as to where we are. We got 700,000 left. And so we had a meeting last Friday, the board did, and spent considerable amount of time discussing how we wanted to use the remainder of that money. Well, we decided that we would have it, I think your term, Karen, was a hybrid. And we want to put a certain percentage of it, 70% actually, into long-term, actually 70% into shorter-term projects. Things like the unique boutique, changing it and putting into a meeting, making a meeting room, especially for the residents to use. Some garage clubhouse improvements. And several others, including the art studio and the valet office and other things. So 25% will be long-term. And we want to look at a land use proposal as to, we've got additional properties outside the gates, considerable amount of it, and it's quite valuable property. And we don't want to do anything that is detrimental to the property in any way, that denigrates it in any way. We want to keep it just as bucolic as it currently is. But we do want to look at a proposal from somebody professional as to whether we can turn some of that into money for use for upgrading, continuing to upgrade our facilities. So that's one of them. Another one is that we are considering what it would take to solarize this property. Is that even feasible? So we want to get a professional proposal to take a look at that, to ascertain whether it's worth our while to put in solar to reduce our electrical costs. Electricity is going up exponentially every single year. One of our biggest expenses, as you saw earlier. So we want to look at whether that makes sense or not. Again, we don't want to do anything that makes the property not look as beautiful as we want it to look. So solar panels sometimes can do that. But we feel like we need to at least explore that. Then a third one we are looking at is access control. Scott can talk to you a lot better about that than I can, but it's the use of, for the condo units and for everything around here to have a electrical system for access to the property, access to your condos, similar to what you might see in a hotel room. And we think having keys distributed and people taking keys with them, we think that's not a good thing for Smith Ranch. And again, we want to look at a proposal as to what kind of system we could get and what kind of cost that would be involved in it and whether it's worth the effort. So we're doing a lot of things with the ERC money that will be productive for Smith Ranch. So I ask for a motion. I guess we need a motion on this, don't we, Scott?
Well, to be clear, this is under other business, so this is not a board action item. This was something that the board took action on in executive session to pursue these exploration projects.
Okay.
But I do think you may want to turn it either to open forum now or wait for audience.
Jim Holden has a question.
Just one second, right here.
The one thing I'm concerned about is many of us have heard, I'm not sure how accurate these rumors are, about hiring a consultant to develop the property generally outside, across the street from the villas. And I don't, probably few of you know that in my former life, I was a real estate attorney with a focus on development. And I think that if you're actually gonna hire a consultant now, you should wait until the next board, because I think you're going about it sort of back-ass work. If you are considering a development and hiring a consultant, how much is that consultant gonna cost?
We don't know yet.
Okay, well, I think it'll be considerable if you're actually looking for some input. And the problem is that almost every resident I've talked to with these rumors swirling about is against it. Because number one, the noise, dust, din, and traffic obstacles for 2 to 4 years, if you were to develop it, would annoy, if not disturb, many residents who came here for peace and serenity. Second, during the time of the construction, anything near the construction would be virtually unsaleable. And since most of us are older, we don't know when we have to sell our units. But for a great period of time, the ones near it would be unsaleable. And third, I think in general, although what you said is correct, we would not want to devalue the premises. I think anything that would yield money, what you try to do as a developer is build the biggest, generally the biggest project possible, would devalue the whole property. So I think the whole plan is detrimental to the community. But, and I'm pretty sure I'm right, but if I'm wrong, I think it should be after, with a new board who has time to really consider all the aspects of it. I can't imagine any reason why we are trying to rush this through in the holidays when people are distracted. There's Thanksgiving, Christmas, New Year, and Hanukkah. So I think you should leave it to the new board.
Jim, I don't know who you've been talking to, but we plan on leaving it to the new board. That's the plan. We're not gonna rush into anything. We're not gonna do anything that we think, or the new board want, that would denigrate the property. And we would like for you to be on the work group that we're forming, okay? Okay, any other questions?
Volunteer, that's what they always tell me in the Army.
Okay, any other, we'll open it up now for an open forum for any subject and anybody else that wants to voice their opinion. And on that subject though, we're just trying to figure out how we can get, this is long-term stuff, and how we can help the future residents of Smith Ranch. And maybe that's a pipe dream, maybe it's not. And so, but we want to find out.
Let me just say, in the unlikely event that the board looks favorably, the next board looks favorably on something, nothing having to do with the sale of our property can proceed without a vote of the membership.
Well, that may very well be, but I think if you're trying to do something that the membership doesn't like, yeah, that may be you can do it without a vote of the residents. But if you're trying to do something that the residents don't want and is detrimental to them, why would you ever do it? I mean, I think you need resident input and for something that nature.
Jim, this is a long-term look, and we don't know where we're headed on this, but we think we owe it to ourselves to take a look at that, because we got property that's idle outside
Yeah, I'm not sure the comments were conveyed or
Yeah.
received correctly. What Gary was mentioning is that any sale of land would require a resident vote. But again, this is all feasibility study type conversations. This is just to determine if or what can be done for any of these subject matters, land use, solar, access controls, etc. So this is months, if not years, conversation. And I think along the way, the board would be smart to get a work group put together, to get focus groups and get resident feedback along the way. So nothing is looked to be done now, but I think that this current board is looking more for a legacy to hand deliver to the next board on ideas of what this board would like to see with that funding.
And besides that, 2 years ago, Tom Bertelson and Jay Paxton, who was a former resident, who also is a lawyer in the real estate area, and both of them looked at it to see what the feasibility would be, and we've done a little work on it already, but there's a lot of work to be done.
Lynn's asking me to say something
No,
because.
I said, were you going to say something?
No, but I will. I was very concerned about selling any of our property that might make the current residents lose their peace and quiet and serenity. And the geography that they're looking at right now would impact the back of 400 and some of the villas. So I did speak up against that. I wasn't even sure we should put the seed money into a study if it's something that is not going to be good for the current residents.
Bonnie?
Please wait for the microphone.
Okay. So I'm a little unclear. Is this resolution empowering you to hire some consultant right now? Or are you going to be setting up committees and looking into it yourselves and waiting for the new board to do the hiring and to sort of focus the attention? I'm unclear as to what this proposal has said.
Yeah, the board's proposal or board's action the other day was to codify their ideas of what they would like to see the ERC money go towards. There's no way within the next 8 weeks, 6 weeks, any of this is going to materialize, but it's at least put something on paper for future boards to address. And frankly, the short-term improvements are areas that we can get to within the next 6 to 8 weeks, if not more. And just to reiterate those, because I don't want to distract from these long-term ones, but I think it's worth reiterating for you, the resident, knowing these short-term ones, which is in particular, as Glenn mentioned, that unique boutique space. The question has been, what are we going to do with that space for years? And this board has been able to finally review the feedback that staff and others have put together on their focus groups, if you will, and that the demand is to have another congregational space for residents. There's more groups than ever before, and we're going to turn that into a public gathering space. The clubhouse garage Wi-Fi system, there's been a lot of conversation about having cameras and Wi-Fi access. This money is going to go towards that much sooner than later. This steam room conversion, what are we going to do with that? Well, there's a lot of expansion ideas that the board saw that they'd like to see converting that area. The art studio expansion, there's room that we could grow that art studio into tangible space for residents to use, like the Flying Pig group. The valet office expansion, there's room to grow that valet office so that those parcels, especially during the holidays, are not accumulating out in the front of the valet area. And then in particular, there's some other office reorganization, but even maybe a van or some transportation improvements that we could look at so that we don't rely on a Class B driver. There's just a number of areas that I think this board is looking to fund much shorter term for you directly, and then these other ones, again, are just feasibility ideas of what can we do, because these questions keep coming up. Should we get solar? Should we utilize our land in other ways? Now we get to put that answer finally to rest with a thoughtful analysis.
And those short-term projects are 75% of the money that we are looking at. So that's basically what we decided, to put 75% into some of these short-term projects that would make life more pleasant around here, and 25% into some of these the study of some of these long-term projects.
We are not going to do anything precipitous, nor is a future board. We're very resident focused, and we're not trying to shove anything down anybody's throat. We're trying to do something with that money that is productive. Colette?
Right behind you.
Thank you. I just wanted to know, in that 75%, is there money for shade options for the pool area that we can have installed by the next summer?
The reserve study has $100,000 scheduled next year for shade components, and there's also a lot of conversation to do that work effectively so that we bring in the resurfacing of the pool and the concrete area redesign as well. So we're all aiming for shade in 2026 in the summer, and there is funding somewhere else for that.
Great, thank you very much.
Any other questions? Any concerns anybody have? We're wide open. Okay. Janet.
Regards to solar panels, I think Marin Golf Club has a whole hill full of them. We might possibly get some information from their accounts as to how it helped, but I think we've missed the government tax refund or
Yeah, we
something.
have.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of strategies outside of ownership that utilizes that tax credit, and so there are still some very nice financial options for Smith Ranch to explore. But as Glenn said earlier, this might be you signing up for the solar work group, Mrs. McDonald.
Just to lighten the subject, it's been raining, but we have double watering in 100 outside, not inside. We have problems inside, which maintenance really fixed nicely.
I didn't catch that first comment though. Double
No, I said
watering?
it's raining outside, but we're watering the landscape with the sprinklers while it's raining.
Yeah, and to that point, maybe there's something goofy with the irrigation system, but we do have a system here in place that as your retention pond accumulates water from your runoff, the sprinklers do run to lower that retention pond level. So if you were to see it raining and you see it sprinkling, that does not automatically mean something is wrong. It's part of the system that we have in place for our water management.
Okay, well, I have the mic. We have our lights on the walkway from 500 to 100 all day long. PG&E likes it.
Yeah, it's good feedback, and I don't want to always perceive to have somebody with an answer already up his sleeve, but just to be fair to that point, we are on a system, an antiquated system, that our lighting system is not zoned, and Kevin and the maintenance department and a number of others are actively looking at a proposal to zone our lighting programs. But one of the reasons why we turn our lights on is in the mornings, the valet office area is wildly dark, and we're concerned about safety, and so we turn on those lights for a few hours, and what we're noticing is that somebody's not turning off those lights later on if the sun does come out. But we're concerned about just the safety conditions for the residents around the clubhouse there.
Okay, good questions. Any further questions? Hearing none, I declare the meeting adjourned.
Glenn, yeah, we had a couple
Wait
of
a
other.
minute.
One more.
Karen has it.
That's my only assignment today. Come on, Fred.
Oh, yes, you do have some. I'm sorry.
You know, participating on a committee is one of the really great experiences here at Smith Ranch, as well as Smith Ranch needing your participation on committees. And we are starting the 26-27 committee year and that process. On December 1st, the nominating committee will be distributing the interest forms for committees for next year. It's important to remember that you're not automatically, your service is not automatically extended, that each year you must turn in an interest form to the nominations committee, and that they must be in the administration mailbox by December 26th. There will also be an electronic version on the website. And what happens, I guess, in January, well, first of all, yeah, in January, the nominating committee presents their recommended chairs for the different committees, and the remaining committee rosters are discussed and presented at the regular February board meeting. So you will get your committee interest forms will be available as of December 1st, and they must be completed by December 26th. So we just want to let you know about that ahead of time.
Okay, thank you, Karen.
Hold on,
This is
Samar here.
Now we have Eileen and another question.
Well, as long as we're talking about the website, just a quick thing. We put in a maintenance request yesterday that the website acknowledged, we got a number on it, but apparently maintenance never got it. So that may be a glitch that, as long as I've got you, Karen.
Sure, no problem. We will look into that. The maintenance order should be going to Mark Anthony directly to be able to respond to it. So we don't know why. And Jessica and I will figure that out.
If we did not have a board meeting the next day after that, where would we want to encourage you to put that breakdown so that we knew about it? What's the step we've been promoting? Yeah, emailing nshelp@smithranchhomes.org is not going to always immediately fix the issue, but I just wanted to encourage this because this is great timing. Great to let us know now, Mrs. Simard, but if tomorrow you're noticing things not working well, email that issue to that address. That'll go to a core 4 people that will be able to address those issues and get back to you or also fix the issue with North Star. So nshelp@smithranchhomes.org. Izzy, it looks like you have a comment as well.
I do, just going back to standing committees and the interest forms. On Tuesday, December 9th, which is the second Tuesday of the month, we are going to be having a standing committee fair where all the committees, as far as I know, will be represented here in this room. If you're new to Smith Ranch Homes and interested in serving on a committee, you'll be able to get more information. If you are somebody who has served on committees and want to try something new next year, you can get more information. And it's just a good way to get acquainted and meet other residents, get to know the committee system, and be a part of it. So that's Tuesday, December 9th from 2 to 3 p.m. in this room.
And then the last item on our agenda is the December board meeting, which has been moved up due to the holiday season to December 16, the third Tuesday of the month at 2 o'clock in this room.
Thank you for that.
And then, of course, don't forget the open house that the employees invite us to. That's on December 10th at noon.
Great. Anything else? Anything else that I missed? I now declare the meeting adjourned.